Mitsubishi C6 range, one of the most versatile shafts on the market. Let's find out why. Mitsubishi are well known for their top-of-the-range Diamana and Tensei models, which are played across the globe on professional tours. Been used by Tiger over the years, that original Diamana Blue series. A number of winners on tour use them every single year. The C6 range is one of the most versatile models out there. So the C element of the C6 name is really Clubmaker. It's a Clubmaker series. And for a number of reasons, that versatility is why they've launched this purely as an aftermarket series for club builders, those who fit and build on site, rather than being open to the big brands, custom schemes, and in their upgrade packages. So what is it that makes this range so versatile? Well, one, you've got a dual series. You've got the blue and the red. Now, Mitsubishi have always been red for higher launch and spin, blue for mid launch and spin. Then they've always had white for the low launch, low spin, but that isn't really where this model sits. So they follow that same pattern of red for higher launch, blue for mid launch. So within the shaft itself, Mitsubishi are one of the few companies that are what we call linear. They make the pre-preg, make the materials, they do all the designs themselves and then through to retail. So they're utilising still some very, very tight quality, some high quality materials within this range. So where it is more of a value range than their top of the line models, you're looking at, from a reshaft point of view, around 175 on the wood shafts and £100 on the hybrid shafts, which is sort of built and gripped. It's still good value series and great quality shaft, but from a structural point of view, one of the bits that they put in, and there's a little logo just on the tip here that hopefully is visible, titanium nickel wire. So what that is, that's wrapped at 45-degree angle through the tip section, and that resists twisting, resists ovaling. So it's one of the things that all the shaft brands are trying to achieve. Anytime you can reduce the deformation, the ovaling of the shaft, you're giving it more consistency. You're not losing stability, because with that ovaling, you get loading in a direction that they don't want it to happen. So you're asking the shaft to recover more and to recover really in a less consistent fashion. If you can take that ovaling out, it works in a smoother way, increases improves the feel, but the smoothness of that loading and unloading through the shaft improves consistency. So that titanium nickel wire that they utilise in some of their top line shafts as well, that's one of the reasons why this is such a consistent performing shaft. The blue series is really quite stable through the midsection, so that's really to keep launch under control and to stop the ball popping up quite so much. The red series here has a slightly firmer handle section, so it doesn't feel too soft, but then is softer through the middle and the tip to create a little bit more flight, a little bit more spin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit these both in a fairway wood, just to give a bit of an insight into how they feel, but also look at how the two products differ between the two. So one of the other characteristics between for the C6 series and where it is so versatile is they have a 4-inch parallel section. So in the tip section, that gives the club maker, the fitter, the potential to shorten that tip section to firm it up and reduce the spin a little bit, or leave it that little bit longer and help create a little bit more kick and a little bit more flight. Most shafts are around the 3-inch mark, so there's a little bit more to play with that parallel tip section to alter the dynamics and to fine-tune the flight profile. And that's one of the reasons it's been quite so successful. From a swinging point of view, the C6 series is a very, what I call it, inoffensive, that's my terminology, a very neutral balance profile through. There's no, in the blue in particular, there's no prominent balance point to it. So it's in that respect, from a swinging point of view, it's a very neutral product. It's a very, very, I say, versatile shaft from that standpoint, because it doesn't promote heavily a kind of a drop in the tip section or a counterbalance to kind of whip the bottom end through. It's a very, very kind of evenly weighted shaft. So what that means is it doesn't require a very pointed action to work. So particularly in fairways, it makes it very versatile. So you definitely get that sensation of a little bit of load and kick. As we stated earlier, this is not a shaft that's designed to be a harsh, hard, heavy loader's shaft. So plenty of feedback through the shaft. So certainly a reasonable feel of of responsiveness through. So not a shaft you've got to work hard, and definitely gives quite a bit back. But with the blue series, there's still a little bit of tightness and stability through the ball. If I just give this a little bit more speed, you get a little bit more of a kick through it, and it just kicks it up a little bit more. But generally from a flight point of view, say very mid-range, mid-launch. I'm going to switch over to the red now. And because of that extra stability through the shaft, the blue is a shaft that we fit into a driver quite a bit. It's a very, very good mid to lighter mid weight profile shaft. So the 50 in particular for that lighter weight retains a bit of stability, but also, with the balance profile being very neutral, is one that we use quite a lot in the driver for someone with a smoother transition, a smoother load profile, but where you're still looking to keep a little bit of flight control on there. So moving across to the red, and this is the same here, the 60 in the blue and the 60 in the red for that comparison point between the two. The red series, because of that slightly firmer butt section, that actually drives the balance point up the shaft a little bit. So the red is a slightly higher balance profile than the blue. But then there's also that little bit more, from a design point of view, designed to be softer through that lower section. So hitting this versus the blue, definitely a little bit more load and pop through the bottom end of the shaft. Where that blue still retain that bit of tightness and stability, the red is really going to give you that little bit of extra load and pop. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to launch massively high, but it does help add a little bit of spin. I'll put one more smooth swing on. But you really feel like the shaft's helping you to get the club head through. That's certainly one of the feelings with the blue, kind of holds on a little bit tighter. There's still that element of stability through the shaft. This one, you can feel that lower half almost crack through a little bit more, and helps potentially for someone who has a miss to the right. This shaft's going to feel like it helps get that toe through and square off. If I put a little bit more speed into this shaft as well, again retains a very, very similar characteristic in terms of feel to it. Doesn't really, interest enough for that shot, didn't really change the launch characteristics much. That's potentially where the slightly stiffer top section just resists the load a little bit more, but then the bottom end kicks and pops. But again, very, very smooth, very responsive shaft, especially, again, particularly we do more of the red in the fairway. So if we do a 50 blue in the driver, quite often we're looking at the 60 in the red in the fairway wood. The way the two profiles match up really well, that progression tends to work quite nicely. And then into the hybrid. So weight-wise they go from, I think it's in the blue it's 54 to 72, 73 grams. In the red there's a 40, 50, 60 and 70, and in the blue there's a 50, 60 and 70. In the red we go from 49 grams to 74 grams. So there's a reasonably wide spread of weights available. They haven't gone to the 40 gram version or the 40 series in the blue, simply because for that profile it makes more sense just to have the red in that model. So that's the only one that doesn't duplicate between the two. Into the hybrid shafts, they used to do a hybrid / iron shaft. So it used to be the same shaft between hybrid and irons, and this series they separated them off. So it makes it a little bit easier from a fitting point of view to have a hybrid specific and then an iron specific shaft. Partly the different head weights and the different head profiles, you don't want too stiff a tip in the hybrid, which you need more for the irons. But also from an identification point of view, much easier for the player, for the consumer to see a hybrid shaft going in a hybrid rather than iron shaft going in the hybrid. It got a little bit confusing, so that just helped clarify things a bit. Equally speaking, they go from a 40, 50, 60, 70 and 80 series version, so the 40 and 47, 48 grams up to 84 grams in the 80 series. So really wide profile of shafts there. This one, from a performance point of view, more along the lines of the blue series versus the red. The tip end, because it's based off the iron shaft profile and developed into a hybrid, it's a little bit more stable through that lower section. Again, very, very neutral weighting and hits nice weight boundaries. So a lot of the time we're looking at a 70 gram being 77, 78 grams, and 80 gram being 88 grams. The 80 being 84 there, and 70 being 72, 73. They sit in the lower half of those weight ranges, which is quite rare for a hybrid shaft. So add a nice element from a fitting point of view relative to other shaft options out there. So I'd say very, very neutral balance, very much like the blue in that series. And feel-wise, because of that little bit extra stability in the tip based off the iron shaft, very much more along the lines of the blue from a stability point of view. It's not a loose feeling shaft. Some people might find the red series with that bit of extra out of the tip feels a little bit soft, a little more, say, vertical as loose. The black in the hybrid is very much more along the lines of the blue series. So not something you've got to work particularly hard to get a response from, but something that will certainly stand up to being hit a little bit more from a feel point of view. So if I, like with the furs, I put a little bit more into this one, it really still feels quite stable through the ball. The one mark with this one is it doesn't feel like you've got to work the bottom end. A lot of hybrid shafts, the balance point sits in the lower half of the shaft. This being more in the midsection, it's not hard work to fetch the club head through. So that's certainly an area where the black in the hybrid has a real value relative to other hybrid shafts on the market. So with the blue and the red in the wood shafts, the black in the hybrid, which continues into the irons, really versatile. Again, good value. The wood shaft's up at around 175 pounds, built, installed, gripped, but the hybrid shaft down at 100 or so. So again, good value into that versus the top of the range shafts. Great quality materials, certainly worth a look if you're looking for something smooth, versatile and responsive.